Next one is from Sandhya Raipalli. Pranam Acharya ji, after Bangalore Vishranti, I have now enrolled for this MAG session. I am admiring Roark's character and wish to be like him. I find that Roark lives life on his own terms. People around him do not approve of his ways, but this does not impact him. There are many instances in the chapter where people around him feel uncomfortable in his presence. At the same time, they don't feel directly offended by Roark. Roark seems to respond naturally to people around him with ease. Currently, I notice that as I am understanding life better, my opinions, thoughts, priorities are changing. This change in me is impacting my relatives, especially my mother. Sometimes I try to make her understand, sometimes I argue, sometimes I ignore. But they get offended easily and this disturbs me. Can you please help me understand how can I live life without getting influenced by others' opinions? Sandhya, one has to be cautious in emulating Roark. You say, within quotes, I am admiring Roark's character and wish to be like him. Then you say, can you please help me understand how can I live life without getting influenced by others' opinions? Roark, his character has been crafted by Rand in a way to demonstrate, to showcase someone who is just not influenced by others. Just not influenced by others. When she has painted Roark, it is in the background of a contrasting world. The contrast is necessary to bring out the nuances of Roark's character. So the background in the novel is full of people who are very easily influenced by others. And then against this sorry background shines the incorruptible, stain-free, blemish-free figure of Roark. The duality is stark. The world is populated by beings who are just too vulnerable to other beings, to tradition, to social norms. And in this world there is Roark who is very, very immune to others. He is so immune to others that neither does he get affected by others, nor does he want to affect others in any way. So that's the portrayal that Rand has shown us. Obviously, no work of fiction can capture life fully. It's one part of reality that Ayn Rand wanted to show us, and she has done a magnificent job of it. So she has shown two categories. The difference is binary. There are those who get affected by others, and then there are those who just don't get affected by others. And there is a bit of a spectrum in between. And the spectrum consists of people like Gail Wynand and Dominic Franken. They lie somewhere between 0 and 1. However, they all lie in the same dimension. That's the way Ayn Rand has built them up. The only way to judge them, according to her, is to see the extent to which they get influenced by others. The only way to judge them is to see the extent to which they get influenced by others, the world. So in the author's worldview, corrupt influences upon a person come from others. In fact, she has gone so far as to say that others can only have a mostly corrupting influence upon a person. Are you getting it? What is the problem with the world? What is the problem with the Peter Keating? What is the problem with the Guy Franken? What is the problem with Prescott or Kiki? What's the thing about Alva Ascaret? What's the thing about Catherine? What is the central disease Ayn Rand points out in their characters? That they get influenced by others. And what is the one shining strength in Roark's character? That he does not get influenced by others. That's how the binary has been constructed. There are those who get influenced by others. And then there are those who don't get influenced by others. A division has been made. It's quite a neat division. One side of this boundary is heavily populated. On the other side, there are only a selected few. Cameron, Mike, of course, Roark. Then later on you would see Dominic and Gail Wynand. So the majority inhabits one side of the divide. And around 2% maybe, like the fellows who sometimes give assignments to Roark, Austin Heller, let's say. The minority 2% inhabit this side of the divide. That's how the canvas has been painted. So there are the goodies and there are the baddies. The goodies are 2% of the population led by Howard Roark. And the baddies constitute 98% of the population. And they are all very powerful. They control the society, they run the systems, they own the media. What defines the baddies? They are influenced by others. What defines the goodies? They are not influenced by others. Now, this can confuse you, Sandhya. The primary corrupting influence upon man does not come from others. It comes from within himself. Ayn Rand has
decided to totally avoid that aspect of human corruptibility. She has totally swept that under the carpet. She doesn't want us to think about it or talk about it. So, we know nothing about Roark's past. And Roark has been conveniently showed to have no family at all. Family means past. Family means the influence that others have had upon you, and more importantly, your genetic stuff. There is nothing called the making of Howard Roark. It's almost as if Roark was born perfect. The thing is, Sandhya, nobody is born perfect. We are all born as bundles of genetically conditioned masses of flesh and bones. And that's how Howard Roark is also born. It really appeals to the ego to emulate Howard Roark. Why? Because one feels that zippy thing. I do not listen to anybody, I will not bow down in front of anybody, But we very conveniently forget that the corruption comes not so much from others, but from within ourselves. We have taken up the Fountainhead for discussion in MAG so that you can see how it is possible to not to let society dictate terms to you. And that's all very noble. There is a greatness in not allowing the world, the society to mean too much to you. There is a greatness in standing up to the temptations and the fears that society maims you with. But do not be persuaded to think that if you do not listen to society, you are all pristine and pure and virgin. Not at all. This division that Ayn Rand has presented us with is useful, but not total. Obviously, there are some people who are very corruptible. And they are easily influenced by social forces. And obviously, there are some people who are not so vulnerable to social influences. But that does not mean that people who are not vulnerable to social influences are the 2% goodies, as Ayn Rand would want us to believe. In fact, some of the worst villains and offenders in the history of mankind are people who had no respect for the society. Society is often a culprit, but it is not the primary culprit. Never forget who the primary culprit is. If today you find the bulk of mankind corrupted, it is not because others are corrupting every single person. It is because the seeds of corruption lie very much within our bodies. In Ayn Rand's perspective, if there is no society, then there will be no corruption. And then everybody will be a Howard Roark. But that is not the case. If there is no society, then it is not Howard Roarks that you can expect. All you will have is boorish remains of what you call as the human being. It is very, very relieving and fascinating to shift all the blame of one's deprivation and conditioning to the society. It appears so heroic, doesn't it? It is great to feel like fighting the society. Again, there is a lot of heroism involved in fighting others. The thing is, Sandhya, at no point has Roark been shown as fighting himself. And even if there was a process involved in his development, the process has never been shown. You cannot just be born a Roark. If it is not impossible, then it is highly unlikely. Maybe a freak of Prakriti. 1 in a million cases can be born a Roark. Others have to be relieved of their physical tendencies, vrittis. That aspect has not been shown here. And you must not become a victim of this omission. Fighting others is all right, Sandhya. Who will remember fighting herself first? Remove the others. Does that bring purity and aloneness and joy to you? Does that happen? If others are the villains, if others are the culprits, then let's keep each person solitary. Hypothetically, if you put people in solitary spaces, would that purify them? No, that would not purify them, because it is not so much the society that corrupts a human being. I repeat, corruption is inherent, embedded in the body itself. Now, if at the age of 21, Roark is how we see him, and that is also quite clever to show Roark straight away at the age of 21. I said the making of Howard Roark has not been revealed to us. If Roark is as we see him at the age of 21, then either he is a freak of Prakriti, born liberated, of which the chances are 0.0001%, and you cannot take such a chance, or he has gone through a process of liberation. Going through that process of liberation is important, Sandhya, because your real fight is not against the society. Your real fight is against yourself. We have discussed so often, there are two types of conditioning: physical and social. Even the social conditioning happens because we are physically born vulnerable to be socially conditioned. Do you understand this? Physical conditioning is the thing inherent in the hardware. Social conditioning is the software that sits upon the hardware. Even the social conditioning is made possible by the physical construction of the human being. So which one then is a greater problem? The physical conditioning or the social? It is the physical conditioning that's the bigger problem. Howard Roark is a great and shining example of someone who resists and is immune to social conditioning. But social conditioning is only 10% of the problem. 90% of the problem is what sits in your body. And the society is not responsible for what sits in your body. It is evolution. It is what this entire journey through time has given us. How is society responsible for that? So when it comes to that 10% sector, Howard Roark is wonderful. If ever you feel pressurized by the society, Howard Roark is a great inspiration to follow. But remember that what Howard Roark corresponds to is only 10% of the problem of the human being. 90% problem is not that others dictate you a lot. 90% problem is that you dictate yourself a lot. So don't be in a hurry to emulate Howard Roark, Sandhya. Fighting the society is a great ideal. But the fight against society will become very easy, very facile, if you have first fought against yourself and earned a victory. Once you have conquered yourself, conquering others is no big deal. In fact, having conquered yourself, you do not even remain greatly interested in conquering others. Do not be so swayed by the Fountainhead, and it's one of my favorites. But do not be so swayed by the Fountainhead that you totally forget that the real culprit sits within, not outside. It is not Professor Peterkin who has corrupted Peter Keating. It is not even Peter Keating's mother who has corrupted Peter Keating. They all have only secondary roles to play in Peter Keating's degradation. The primary role is played by Prakriti. Let's not forget that. The child is born vulnerable to corruption. Vrittis sit in the newborn. We do not have enough immunity when we are born. What kind of immunity are we talking of? Immunity against conditioning. And if you have an immunity problem, do you want to blame the pathogen? If your problem is your weak immunity, do you want to blame the virus and the bacteria? Blaming the society is like blaming the virus and the bacteria when the real, the central, the core problem of the human being is its lack of immunity. And this problem is not social. This problem, I repeat, is physical. Therefore, those who have known have repeatedly said that body identification is the root cause of all evils. Sandhya, have you read somewhere that society identification is the root cause of all evils? Body identification is the root cause. Society plays a secondary role. And if you have identified how hormones and glands and the inner chemicals dictate you, and if you can see that fastidiously, if you can see that very clearly, then you would anyway not be vulnerable to the society anymore. Therefore, no point trying to fight the wrong battle. Focusing all your attention on the society and thinking that the society is the villain, the society is the culprit, is like barking up the wrong tree. You do not even know who your real enemy is. Your real enemy is not the AGA. Your real enemy is not Guy Franken. Your real enemy is not the Stanton Institute of Technology. Your real enemy is your own brain. And once you can see how the brain is a conditioned machine designed to function only in a specific way, then there is a possibility to stand apart from all this hodgepodge. And once you stand apart, then you let the machine be. The machine then does what it has to do. And then what you do is called genuine creativity. Okay? Howard Roark is my favorite. I met him when I was 20. And my adulation for him hasn't fainted since the last 20 years. But then I also know his place in the larger scheme of things. He is a great role model when it comes to fighting the society, but only to that extent. That's his domain. If your real problem is jealousy or anger, if your real problem is hormonal, how will emulating a Howard Roark help you? In fact, that will only distract you from your real problem. Instead of fighting yourself, you will start fighting your neighbor, thinking that your neighbor is your oppressor. Like you have put in your question, that I try to say so many things, but my mother doesn't listen to me, so what do I do? Do you know what this is hinting at? You will shift all the blame to your mother. In fact, that's what your question does. The fundamental of wisdom says, look at yourself first. Look at yourself first. Don't blame your relatives or your mother. But in the Randian heroism, all the blame is shifted to the society, the others. By no means I am giving the others a green chit. All I am saying is the others constitute only 10% of the problem. It's foolish to fight that 10% of the problem without having fought the 90% part, which is your own mind, your own body. And when you want to worship Roark, do not forget that even Ayn Rand could not conjure or speculate how to show Roark communicating with his father or mother or uncle. So she took a very convenient route. Roark has no childhood, Roark has no years of growing up, and Roark has no mummy, no papa. That does not happen with you. You do have parents. You do have a childhood. You do not straight away jump into the world at the age of 21 or 22 as Roark does in the novel. Are you getting it? Don't you see what is happening? Peter Keating has been shown to have a mother. Roark, no mother at all. Now what do you mean? If you have a mother, should you murder her? Should you murder her? Because you want to emulate Roark, right? And Roark has no mother. Roark has no father. Roark doesn't even have distant relatives. Ayn Rand has taken a very easy route. Roark has been shown to be almost bodiless. When I say body, what do I mean? The ones who are related to you via the bodily route. So Roark has been shown almost as a spirit with no body involved. That is not the case with you. When Roark has been shown just as a spirit with hardly any body, then there is no need to conquer the body. Are you getting it? Had Roark been shown to have a past, had Ron been shown to have relationships with family and this and that, then there would have been a need to conquer the body. The easy way out is do not give him a body, do not give him a past, do not give him bodily relationships. Then there will be no need to show how to conquer the body. Because if you want to show how to conquer the body, then you will have to get into spirituality and mysticism. And that is one thing that Ayn Rand was not very interested in talking about. So she just suppresses that part of Roark's personality. He is shown to us as already perfect. Already perfect. He is not on a journey. Dominique is on a journey. Everybody else is on a journey. Roark is hardly on a journey. In fact, the very opening paragraph says, not the opening paragraph, the opening few lines. First page, second page. All that had to be thought had already been thought of. Howard Roark knew that he must think. He also knew he would not think, because all that had to be thought of had already been thought of. Now it would have been splendid had the reader been given into an insight, had the reader been given an insight into what needed to be thought of and what is it that already had been thought of and how. What is Roark's inner mechanism? But Rand never reveals that to us, what Roark's inner mechanism is. Because inside, you see, there are vrittis and tendencies and feelings and all the hodgepodge. The way you come upon Roark is, Roark does not have any of those things, but you do have those things. What to do? How will you emulate Roark? And if you want to emulate Roark, then you have to first come to a condition where you do not have those things. If you want to emulate Roark, you will have to first come to a point where the inner glandular functioning, the inner hormonal functioning, the inner conditioning is no more functional upon you. And then you can say, I want to emulate him. But then there will be no need to emulate him. Are you getting it? Are you getting it? I would be glad if somebody takes up the project of writing a piece that is titled The Making of Howard Roark. That would be far more useful. Roark, as has been shown in the novel, is just a shining star. He is lovely. But to most people, he is just intimidatory. He teases more than he inspires, because he does not show a way to reach him. He is perfect, that's all. That's all. One can then only curse his luck. Oh, I was not born like Roark. Now what to do? And he is born special in every way. His body is just like his drawings and his buildings. No curves, only straight lines, a gaunt figure. Nothing unnecessary upon his body, not even clothes, many a times. Nothing unnecessary in his mind. Just like his buildings have nothing unnecessary in them and upon them. So he is wonderful as a portrayal of the perfectly society-proof man. He's a portrayal. The picture of a car will not tell you how to make a car. Or will it? So Roark is the picture of a car. You never come to know where that car comes from. In fact, I would want to ask Ayn Rand, why don't you tell us where that car comes from? For sure, that car doesn't come from the mother's womb. For sure, that car does not come from the mother's womb. Why don't you tell us where that car comes from? You won't tell us because if you tell that to us, you will have to accept spirituality and mysticism, which you do accept. I admire you for that, but you accept it in very, very implicit ways. Ayn Rand is highly spiritual, but only at a very deep level. Explicitly, she keeps cursing the mystical figures. If you go to Atlas Shrugged, especially, there she has explicitly taken a position against mysticism. But the fact is that without mysticism, somebody like Howard Roark cannot exist. Or was he born perfect like Lao Tzu at the age of 84? About Lao Tzu, it is said that at the age of 84, he was born with a glistening white beard. That's how he came out from the mother's womb. But that is myth. And I'm sure Ayn Rand doesn't believe in myths. Are you getting it? So don't be too carried away, Sandhya and others. Fight against others, but firstly fight against yourself. Otherwise, it is the typical teenage fantasy. I'll fight the world. I am the warrior, the knight in a shining armor, out to save the world. I am the one goodie against all baddies. That's more of Rajnikant than spirituality, is it not? One goodie taking on all the baddies of the entire world. It's not that way. It's oversimplification. The baddies are not people. The baddies are our innate tendencies. It is not people who are bad. Do not start cursing people. Here you are cursing, almost cursing, that is, your mother. The fact is, Sandhya, you will have a lot of your mother inside you. Why don't you talk about that? A lot of your mother would already be present inside you and guiding you and dictating you and ruling you from within. But you do not want to talk about that. You want to talk about your mother, the other person. Be cautious of that, please. Your mother, I do not know to what extent she hurts and harms you from the outside. But I am very sure that your mother might be quite poisonous, ruling and commanding you from the inside. So explore your insides. That is far more important. Maya is not other people. Maya is your insides eating you out from within. But we love to blame others for all that we have, right? And that is a very common tendency. Ayn Rand has also just been a victim of that tendency. Blaming others, blaming society. Oh, the society is so bad, it does not care for a genius like Howard Roark. A black and white thing has been painted. The society is all black and Howard Roark is all white. It does not happen that way. Be very, very careful before acting like a victim of others. The ego relishes self-victimization. There is nothing so pleasing to the ego as to say the others are all baddies and I am the goodie, and the baddies are all ganged up against me and they are not giving me contracts and commissions. But I am the good one. I am the savior of the world. I am the only shining light of the world. No, no, no. This kind of a black and white segregation is unreal. I have seen this with so many people, and I often wonder what is happening. You see, there are two kinds of responses to the Fountainhead that always amaze me. And since the last 20 years, I would have recommended the Fountainhead to innumerable people, running into hundreds maybe. And I'm talking about the two specific sets of responses that never cease to amaze me. One is when somebody goes through the Fountainhead and says, yeah, it was good. I finished it all off in 3 days, It was nice, fine. Who was that fellow? Howard. Yeah, nice fellow, nice chap. It was good. And Neil Wynand and Peter Kittredge, their characters are also nice. So that is one kind of response. And the fellow belonging to this first kind may even say that he has become a fan of Ayn Rand. Oh, I really loved it. And even as he is saying that he has become a fan of Ayn Rand, he is haggling with a vegetable vendor, somebody on a pushcart. So haggling with the pushcart chap for 2 rupees, he says, I am a big Ayn Rand fan. Absolutely amazing, this set of people. And then there is another set of people. Their reactions have worried me. They are the ones who become absolutely belligerent after meeting Roark. They go totally and militantly ballistic. They say, now I have seen that this entire society is a bunch of cowards and good-for-nothings. Now I see how a great genius like me is not being appreciated. Ayn Rand is my goddess. She has come and told me that I am Howard Roark incarnate. I always suspected that there is nothing wrong with me, it's the world. That's absolutely foolish. Now Ayn Rand has vindicated me. And these people become absolutely arrogant after reading the Fountainhead. Obviously their arrogance does not last long. 2 slaps from the world and they are back to their normal self. But for a period of a month or 2, they act almost like Roark. What are the elements of acting like Roark? Carry a stony expression in the eyes. Because Ayn Rand says an expression or an emotion was the equivalent of seeing Howard Roark broken. So especially the young men and young women who are recent entrants to the Roark fan club, they start carrying a very dead stone expression on their faces. And they would speak very little because Howard Roark has been shown to speak very little. And they would deliberately act harsh because Roark has not been shown to deal in social pleasantries. And they would deal in short and crisp sentences very curtly, the way Roark does. Yes, no, I didn't say sorry. And this way they copy and emulate Roark for a while, and then they come back to what they really are. All this is quite foolish. And who becomes an easy victim? Professors, parents. So Roark's discussion with the dean is iconic. And if you can get hold of some old and about to retire professor, then that is your best shot at Roarkhood. And your wildest fantasies are materialized if ever, by chance, he happens to say, but son, who will allow you to do these things? And then you say, this is my moment. And you catch the moment with the greatest of delights and you say, the question is not who will stop me, who will allow me. The question is who will stop me. And having said that, you do an internal high five to yourself. And you say, yes, I just proved to the entire world that I am the one Roark visualized in her dreams. The world does not give two hoots to such phony fantasies. Over the last 2 decades, I have seen, I repeat, hundreds fall prey to such inner tricks and then come back to their normal decadent selves. I love Howard Roark, but this is not what I want you to do with him. I mean, not that I do not want you to love him. I'm saying I do not want you to emulate him. Let him stand like a pole star. See that it is possible to resist the greatest of fears and temptations. That much, and only that much. I repeat, that much, surely that much. That is why this course has chosen the Fountainhead as the text. I want you to learn that much, but I want you to learn only that much. Beyond that would be foolhardy. Real rebellion is not so dramatic. Real rebellion is subtle, implicit. Real rebellion does not consist of turning in a poem in Hindi in response to an assignment in English literature class. But that is what, unfortunately, I have seen many people learn from Roark. You remember his conversation with the dean? The dean says, when in a course on aesthetics in architecture, you are asked to submit a design in Renaissance or Gothic, you turned in something modernistic. Now, that is not bravado, that is foolishness. If you have enrolled in a 4-year course, you very well know what all courses per semester there are, right? You know that in advance. If you are enrolling in a 4-year BTech course, don't you know? In a 4-year BTech program, you know what all courses you would be doing per semester, that you are intimated of well in advance. Now, in a mechanical engineering course, in a thermodynamics course, you turn in a code in C++ that does not tell of your love for C++. that merely is foolish. So don't start copying that. And it is quite attractive to copy, especially if you are bad in thermodynamics. You would say, oh, but that is what Roark did, didn't he? He loved his modernistic style so much that even in the other courses he started turning in modernistic answers. Why are you doing that? Now, having said all this, now I am afraid that I am putting you off Howard Roark. It's a very delicate balance, you see. You people have the tendency to be either fanboys or adversaries. You know only these two positions. So if you are not a fanboy, then you immediately turn an adversary. Right now, as I look at this, most of the questions are coming from Howard Roark fan club. And because they are coming from Howard Roark fan club, I'll have to demolish them. And if I demolish them, then I fear that in the next session, we will only have vituperative remarks about Roark. People would be scolding him, oh Roark, you know, he's such a scoundrel. You do not know the thing called perspective. Do you understand what perspective is? To put a thing in exactly its right place. Neither up nor down. Neither up nor down. Many years back, I had a student named Ali. He sent me a book. The book was titled Stripping the Gurus. And it took all the famous gurus and teachers and prophets in history, not all obviously, several of them, and said unkind and scandalous things about them. So I read the book with interest. It talked of Ramakrishna Paramhans, Jesus, if I remember correctly, Krishnamurti, and obviously you cannot keep Osho out of such things. So I read the book, and it was a soft copy, and I immediately broadcasted it to everybody. And the team was shocked. They said, Acharya ji, you are sending this stuff to everybody. I said, but it's important that everybody must know this. They said, but I said, I already knew of all these things. They said, but you respect them so much, you worship them so much. I said, I respect them a lot in spite of knowing all these things. I'm not a blind follower. I really know people for what they actually are. So when it comes to an Osho, I know all the stuff about him. In fact, I know of more inconsistencies in his argument than even his worst detractors do. But in spite of that, I love him. Because it is not only flaws that he is offering. There is a great intelligence behind what he is doing and also great love. I have to respect that. Am I a fly to look only for dung? Or do I know how to worship cleanliness as well? That's called perspective. Know where Howard Roark really stands and then love him. Because he is still very, very, very lovable. Know where all the luminous figures in history really stand, and then still love and respect them. because they are really the salt of the earth. Are you getting it? We have a tendency to idolize. And it is a very convenient tendency, because when you totally idolize somebody, then you turn him into someone out of this world. You say, oh, this person belongs to another dimension. The fact is, all are bodied beings. All are like you. And it should be a matter of introspection why another being, born with all the physical tendencies just like you, was able to rise so high. Such an introspection would really be an agent of change within you. It would provoke some soul searching, some humiliation. It would ask you to wonder whether you have done justice to your potential. You were born, and the other was born, and there are just two babies who are born. How was that other baby able to rise to the heights of a Paramhans or a Jesus or a Krishnamurti? Why did you not do all those things that he did? After all, in spite of all the conditioning, there is choice involved. Why did you not exercise your choices rightly? To get over our guilt, we declare that the other person was born perfect. We say, no, he was born in a special muhurt. He was born like Howard Roark, perfect at 21. No. These luminous figures in history have to be seen both ways. In one way, they are very much like you. And in another way, they are totally unlike you. And when you see them in both these ways parallelly, simultaneously, then it will provoke a guilt, a shame, a fire within that will cause you to change. Because then you will have to accept that somebody who is totally like you is also totally unlike you. Now that's a shame. That's a shame. If you just say that the other person belongs to the stars, then there is no shame. He is superior because he belongs to the stars. Why should there be any shame then? After all, he belongs to another planet. So he has some additional senses in his body maybe. Maybe you have 5 senses, he has 52. Now there is no reason to be ashamed. Now there is no reason to introspect and change. But the fact is the other person is just like you and is yet stellar. Now it humiliates. And that is what you must always consider. This is what I am calling as perspective. In one sense, the other person is very much like you, and yet he is stellar, sitting upon the stars. How did he make it happen? Why couldn't you make it happen? The more you expose or reveal that the other person also belongs to the earth, the more you are bringing humiliation upon yourself, because he indeed does belong to the earth. Just as you do. How was he able to launch himself from the earth to the stars? Why did you not make the attempt? So know Roark with all the shortcomings that abound in his portrayal. Know of all his shortcomings, and then your admiration and affection for him will be true. Do you get this, or do you find this highly contradictory? Do you want to look at Roark just as a fanboy, glossing over all the inconsistencies in his character? Or do you want to look at him really, truly, with a discerning eye, and then still find him lovely? What is it that you want? Yes, look at him with a discerning eye. See that Ayn Rand has left many areas unanswered. See that Roark is not the ultimate beautiful being, and then love him for the beauty he has. That is perspective. Do you get this?